Let me be direct with you. Life is already complicated enough. You don't need people draining you, distracting you, or pulling you into their chaos. The truth is, some people don't want you to grow. They don't want you to win. They only want to take. So today, I want you to remember this. Stay away from people who ask you for these 7 things. Your integrity, if someone asks you to lie for them, cheat for them, or compromise your values, that's not loyalty. That's manipulation. Anyone who makes you trade your character for their comfort doesn't deserve a place in your life. Your time without respect. We all know those people who treat your time as if it has no value. They show up only when it's convenient for them. If someone constantly wastes your time but never respects it, walk away. Your energy without giving back energy is life. Be careful with people who drain you, who always take but never pour anything back into you. They leave you tired, frustrated, and empty. Protect your energy like your survival depends on it, because it does. Your dreams, there will be people who laugh at your goals, who tell you that's impossible. The moment someone asks you to shrink your dreams so they can feel comfortable with theirs, cut the cord. Your loyalty without earning it loyalty is sacred. But if someone expects your loyalty without respect, trust, or accountability, they're not asking for loyalty. They're asking for blind obedience. Don't give it. Your silence when you should speak. Stay away from those who want you quiet when you know you should stand up. Whether it's for yourself or for what's right, silence in the face of wrongdoing is dangerous. Anyone who pressures you to stay silent is asking you to give up your power, your self-respect. This is the biggest one. If anyone asks you to tolerate disrespect, abuse, or being treated less than you deserve, let them go. The moment you give up your self-respect, you give up everything. Here's the bottom line. You don't owe anyone your dignity, your dreams, or your peace. The right people will never ask you to give up those things. They will respect your boundaries, support your growth, and celebrate your strength. So protect your life. And above all, stay away from people who ask you for these 7 things. Integrity is the core of who you are. It is the invisible thread that runs through every choice you make, every word you speak, and every action you take. When you live with integrity, people know where you stand. They trust you, even if they don't always agree with you. But here's the danger. There will always be people who try to pull you away from that center, who will ask you to bend your values just enough to benefit them, who will try to convince you that loyalty means doing what they want, even if it violates what you know is right. The moment you trade your integrity for someone else's comfort, you begin to lose the foundation of who you are. It doesn't always happen in big ways. Rarely will someone come up to you and say, leave for me, cheat for me, betray yourself for me. Instead, it happens subtly. They might say, don't tell anyone about this. Just keep it between us, even when keeping it quiet puts you in conflict with your conscience. Or they might ask you to cover for them, to say you saw something you didn't, to sign something you shouldn't, to back them up even when you know they are wrong. And the problem with compromising once is that it becomes easier the second time. Each time you justify bending your principles, you weaken your ability to stand tall when it really matters. Think about the people who have influenced you most. Were they perfect? Probably not, but they were consistent. You respected them because you could count on them to tell the truth, even when the truth was uncomfortable. You trusted them because they didn't play both sides. Integrity means you don't put on one face for the world and another in private. It means your word carries weight, that when you say something, people know you mean it. And that's rare in a world where so many people are willing to say whatever is convenient. Now ask yourself, what happens when you allow someone to chip away at that? What happens when you bend because you don't want conflict, because you don't want to disappoint, because you fear losing the relationship? You may think you're protecting the connection, but what you're actually doing is teaching that person that your integrity is negotiable. And once someone sees that your values can be bent, they will ask you again and again, each time pushing a little further until you no longer recognize yourself. Integrity is also about how you see yourself. You can put on a front for other people, but you can't lie to yourself. Deep down, you know when you've compromised. You know when you've betrayed your own principles. That kind of self-betrayal stays with you. It eats at your confidence. It makes you second guess your choices. And once you start living that way, you stop trusting yourself. If you can't trust yourself, how can you expect others to trust you? This is why protecting your integrity must be non-negotiable. You have to be willing to lose people rather than lose yourself. Because anyone who demands that you compromise your values is not asking for loyalty. They're asking for control. They want you to carry their weight, to cover their tracks, to do their dirty work while they walk away clean. And the cost of agreeing to that is much higher than the cost of saying no. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is to look someone in the eye and say, I can't do that. That's not who I am. You risk being called difficult. You risk being called disloyal. You risk being misunderstood. But the people who truly matter, the ones who deserve a place in your life, will respect you for drawing that line. They may not like it in the moment, but they will see that you are someone who cannot be bought, manipulated, or bent to fit their agenda. And that kind of strength commands respect. It's easy to convince ourselves that small compromises don't matter, that just this once will bend. That just this time we'll let it slide, but those small choices build into patterns. The little compromises you make for others turn into habits, and suddenly you're not living your truth, you're living theirs. You're living theirs. You are carrying their expectations, their demands, their values instead of your own. That is how people lose themselves, not all at once, but piece by piece. When you protect your integrity, you also protect your future. Every opportunity you earn, every relationship you build, every door that opens for you, it comes from the reputation you create. And reputation is simply integrity in action seen over time. People talk. They notice whether you keep your word, whether you do the right thing when no one is watching, whether you are consistent even when it costs you. And once you lose that reputation, it is nearly impossible to get it back. So when someone asks you to compromise your values, pause and recognize what is really being asked of you. It may look like a small favor, but in reality, they are asking you to chip away at the very foundation of your identity. They are asking you to choose them over yourself, their comfort over your character. And once you start saying yes to those kinds of requests, you are no longer in control of your life. They are. Integrity requires courage. It requires that you disappoint people. It requires that you stand in discomfort, but it also frees you. When you live with integrity, you don't have to remember what you said to whom. You don't have to cover your tracks. You don't have to live with guilt or fear of being exposed. You stand solid, grounded, unshaken. And the people around you know that your yes means yes and your no means no. Time and energy are the two currencies of life that can never be replaced. Money, possessions, opportunities, those can come and go, but the hours you spend and the energy you invest are gone forever once you give them away. Yet, how many times do we let people take those two things as if they cost nothing? People who drain you of your time and energy without giving back are not just inconveniences. They are dangers to your growth, your focus, and your peace of mind. Think about how often someone interrupts your day with demands that don't align with your goals. They call you only when they need something, never when they want to check in on you. They expect you to drop everything to accommodate them, while never considering how much it costs you. That's not respect. That's exploitation. Respecting someone's time means valuing it as much as your own. And if people are not willing to respect your schedule, your commitments, your priorities, then what they are really telling you is that their needs matter more than your life. It may start small. Someone asks you to help them with a task that they could easily do themselves. They invite you to things you don't really want to attend, but you go because you don't want to disappoint them. They keep you on the phone for hours, venting about their problems. Yet, when you need someone to listen, they are nowhere to be found. And each time you say yes, each time you give in, you lose a little more of your energy and you lose time you could have invested in yourself. Energy is not infinite. No matter how strong you are, you can't give endlessly without recharging. There are people in your life who recharge you. You spend time with them and you feel inspired, uplifted, more alive. And then there are those who leave you feeling tired, frustrated, and emotionally drained. The difference between the two is simple: givers versus takers. Givers respect balance. Takers only see what they can extract. If you are constantly left feeling empty after being around someone, that's your signal. They are not nourishing you. They are feeding off you. The truth is, people will take as much as you allow them to. If you make yourself always available, if you never say no, if you let them interrupt your work, your rest, your priorities, they will keep doing it. Not because they are evil, but because you have trained them that your time and energy are not protected. And once that becomes the dynamic, they don't see you as a person with limits. They see you as a resource to be tapped whenever they feel like it. That's why boundaries are not optional. They are essential. Boundaries are not about pushing people away. They are about teaching people how to treat you. Time is also the most valuable investment you will ever make, because how you spend it defines who you become. Every hour you waste on people who don't respect it is an hour you could have spent building yourself, learning something new, resting so you can perform at your best, or connecting with people who actually matter. When you allow others to misuse your time, you're not just being polite, you're sacrificing pieces of your future. And here's the harsh truth. Not everyone deserves your energy. You may feel guilty about that, but it's the reality. Some people bring nothing but negativity. They want to pull you into their drama, into their problems, into their endless cycle of complaining. They want your emotional labor, your attention, your focus, without ever intending to change or improve themselves. And if you give in, you become part of their cycle. You waste your strength trying to fix what they have no intention of fixing. That's not kindness. That's self-destruction. The most successful and fulfilled people in life are not those who say yes to everyone. They are the ones who are disciplined about where their time and energy go. They know that every yes to someone else is a no to themselves. So they choose carefully. They surround themselves with people who uplift them, challenge them, and respect their boundaries. They don't apologize for protecting their schedule, and they don't feel guilty for saying no. Ask yourself, how many hours of your life have you already given to people who didn't deserve them? How much energy have you wasted on arguments, on pleasing others, on doing things that brought no growth or fulfillment? Imagine if you had invested all that time and energy into your own development, your own goals, your own peace. Where would you be today? That's the cost of not protecting yourself. Guarding your time and energy is not selfish. It is responsible. It means you recognize that you have a limited supply and you want to use it wisely. It means you care enough about your life to decide who and what is worth investing in. And it means you have the strength to let go of people who don't value what you bring to the table. Because if someone cannot respect your time and your energy, they cannot truly respect you. Self-respect is the foundation of every relationship you have, not just with others, but with yourself. The way you allow people to treat you is a reflection of how you value yourself. If you let others disrespect you, dismiss your worth, or cross your boundaries without consequence, you are sending a message not only to them, but to yourself, that your dignity is negotiable. And once you start giving up pieces of yourself, respect to keep other people happy, it doesn't take long before you forget who you really are. It begins subtly. Someone makes a comment that belittles you, and instead of addressing it, you laugh it off to keep the peace. Someone disregards your opinion, talks over you, or ignores your boundaries, and you convince yourself it's not worth the argument. Then it happens again and again, and each time you stay quiet, each time you let it slide, you are training yourself to accept less than you deserve. Before long, you find yourself walking on eggshells, avoiding conflict, tolerating behavior that once would have been unacceptable, all because you've convinced yourself it's easier to stay silent than to stand up. But here's the truth. When you trade self-respect for approval, you don't win anything. You may avoid conflict in the short term, but inside, you lose trust in yourself. You lose confidence in your own voice. You begin to question whether your feelings matter, whether your boundaries are valid, whether you even deserve better treatment. That's what happens when you consistently put someone else's comfort above your own dignity. You start to shrink. You make yourself smaller so others can feel bigger. Respect is not something you demand once. It's something you reinforce every day. It shows in how you speak about yourself, how you carry yourself, how you respond when people cross the line. When you let someone disrespect you and then continue to engage with them as if nothing happened, you teach them that their behavior is acceptable. People learn quickly what they can get away with. And if you don't hold the line, they will keep pushing it further. It's not just about the disrespect from others. It's also about the disrespect you show yourself when you settle for less than you deserve. Staying in environments that drain you, staying in relationships where you are undervalued, saying yes when you want to say no, all of these are forms of self-disrespect. You can't expect the world to treat you better than you treat yourself. If you accept crumbs, you can't be surprised when that's all people offer you. The cost of giving up your self-respect is far greater than the cost of losing a relationship, a job, or an opportunity. Because without self-respect, you lose your center. You become dependent on others to define your worth. You start to measure yourself by how much you please people, by how much you're needed, by how much approval you receive. But none of that is stable. Approval changes. People's needs change. The only thing that remains constant is the standard you set for yourself. It takes courage to demand respect, especially from people who are used to taking advantage of your silence. When you finally say, I won't accept this anymore, you will upset some people. They will accuse you of changing. They will call you selfish. They will try to guilt you into lowering your standards again. But understand this, their reaction is not proof that you're wrong. It's proof that your boundaries are working. The ones who truly value you will adjust because they don't want to lose you. The ones who only valued what they could take from you will leave, and that is a gift in disguise. Self-respect also means honoring your own needs, even when others don't understand them. It means knowing when to walk away, even if it hurts. It means refusing to stay in spaces that diminish you, no matter how familiar or comfortable they may feel. Growth often requires distance from people, from habits, from environments that no longer align with your worth. And sometimes the bravest act of self-respect is simply saying, I deserve better than this. There's a difference between humility and self-neglect. Humility means you don't place yourself above others. Self-neglect means you place yourself beneath them. Too many people confuse the two. They think being kind means being a doormat, that being humble means tolerating abuse, that being giving means abandoning themselves. But real respect, both for yourself and for others, comes from balance. You can be kind without being weak. You can be humble without being silent. You can be generous without draining yourself dry. Look at the strongest people you admire. Their strength doesn't come from arrogance. It comes from a deep sense of self-respect. They know their worth. They don't tolerate being diminished. They don't chase approval. And because they respect themselves, they command respect from others. People may not always like them. They always know where they stand with them. That kind of clarity only comes when you refuse to compromise your dignity. Every time you choose self-respect, you reinforce your inner strength. You build a relationship with yourself that cannot be shaken by outside opinions. You begin to trust your own voice, to believe in your own worth, to set standards that protect your peace. And once you experience the power of living that way, you won't trade it for anything. Not for love, not for acceptance, not for belonging, because you'll realize that the only approval you truly need is your own.